This video is sponsored by Anker. Now before I talk about the TTartisan 50mm F1.4 lens for full frame cameras, I want to talk about the Anker Nano Pro. Now Anker reached out to me a couple of weeks ago and they asked if I wanted to review this little USB-C charger. And I said yes immediately because I have been using their original Anker Nano for almost a year now. There are three things that you need to know about the new Anker Nano Pro. The first is that it is fast. It provides 20 watts of charging power, which means it's perfect for the brand new iPhone 13 mini, such as what I have here. In fact, this can charge this phone from 0% to 50% in under 30 minutes, which makes it 3 times faster than the little 5-watt brick that you get from Apple. The second thing is that it is small. When you compare it to Apple's own 20-watt charger, it's about half the size. Third, the Anker Nano Pro is now available in 4 different colors: white, black, a cool blue color, and this lavender. Now you might think this is for me, but it's not, because my wife picked it out. It's her favorite color. So it's a great little charger. I'd highly recommend it. If you want to check it out or read more about it, please check out the link in the description below. Special thank you to Anker for supporting this channel. Now let's get into the review of the TTartisan 50mm. I've been kind of hesitating doing this review because if you guys watched my 5-way comparison where I compared the Sigma 56 to 4 other manual lenses, you saw that at the end of that I added up all the points and basically this lens came in last place. But I am still going to review it and I'm going to give it a fair assessment because that's what this channel is about. I'm going to be honest about it and tell you everything I like and what I don't like about this little lens. So let's start by seeing how this thing comes packaged. It comes in a small gray and black box. Inside you get a user manual, warranty card. On the lens there is a plastic rear lens cap and a metal tension fit front lens cap. The lens itself is very compact, especially for being a full frame lens, and even more so for being an f1.4 lens. It is made out of metal and glass and it feels well put together. It is a heavy feeling lens as well, coming in at 426 grams. That makes it heavier than the Sigma 16mm f1.4, even though it is quite a bit smaller. Starting at the rear, there is a metal mount with no electronic connections, no weather sealing, and no USB ports. This is an all manual lens. Moving forward, there is a retro styled white and yellow focal distance scale printed on the lens barrel and on the focus ring. The ring itself takes up the majority of the body, is fairly grippy, and has quite a bit of weight to the rotation. At first, it was almost too stiff to turn, but it has loosened up a little bit over the last few weeks, and it feels heavy and smooth, but there is a little spot in the middle of the rotation that requires more torque to turn. If you don't compare the focus ring to other lenses, you won't complain about it, but if you do, you may not like how it feels. In front of that is a small aperture ring that is much better feeling, lighter with distinct clicks, which is perfect. I really like how it feels on this lens. Around the front there is a surprisingly small front lens element that is almost flat and a bunch of information printed here. Famously, DJ Optical drops another hit. There is a serial number, TTartisan logo, and specs. This lens has a 49mm filter thread. Inside, this lens features 10 elements in 8 groups and a 12-bladed aperture. Mounted on my A7C, it is a good-looking lens. Definitely has Leica styling with the white and yellow, and even the font seems very similar. Alright, so this lens is well built. The thing that is most disappointing to me personally is the focus ring. I just think it's a little bit too stiff. But let's talk about this lens's performance. Now, first and foremost, when I did my 5-way comparison a couple of weeks ago, I tested this lens on an APS-C censored camera. And I have to say that this lens, if you have an APS-C camera, is not the lens for you because there are simply way too many 50mm fast primes that are manual focus available on the APS-C platform. And many of them are better optically than this lens, and a lot of them are also cheaper than this lens. In fact, TTartisan themselves make a 50mm f1.2, which I reviewed a couple of months back, and I'd say that that lens is better suited for APS-C than this one is. But if you have a full frame camera, keep watching because this lens is a value if nothing more. So optically wide open at f1.4, you get surprisingly sharp images in the center, I should say decently sharp. When you stop this lens down to f2 and f2.8, it gets insanely sharp in the center. But again, I'm talking about manual focused lenses. It's nowhere near on the same level as something like the Sigma 85mm f1.4 art for full frame. It's just a completely different level of lens. When you look at the corners wide open, they look pretty soft. Now, if you're using this lens for portrait work, that's not going to be an issue because your subject's going to be in the center of the frame most of the time anyway. But if you are planning on using a lens such as this one for landscapes, then just stop it down to f8 and the corners do sharpen up quite a bit. But they are not perfect. From a distortion standpoint, there are a couple of issues with this lens. First of all, barrel distortion I didn't see. In fact, what I saw was a little bit of pin cushion. There was quite a bit of vignetting wide open at f1.4 that does go away at around f2.8 or so. And chromatic aberration, I would say that is the Achilles heel of this lens. In fact, it reminds me a lot of the 50mm f1.2 from a performance standpoint. That one is obviously for APS-C, this one's for full frame, but very similar performance because that lens was horrible with chromatic aberration, and I would say that this is among some of the worst performing lenses that I've reviewed in terms of chromatic aberration. There's a lot of fringing that you get from this lens wide open. In terms of flaring, there's also a lot of it here. There was no lens hood included with this lens, which is sad. It obviously could benefit from one. But if you like a lot of crazy flaring, then that's great. You'll love this lens. But if you don't, then you probably won't appreciate the flaring that you get from this thing. There's just not enough coatings. I think that these manufacturers are just not using the same coatings as other companies such as Tamron and Sigma, so you get quite a difference in terms of flare performance. For video work, this lens also is not ideal because it exhibits quite a bit of focus breathing as you focus in and out. Here's an example of that. It is pretty drastic. All right, so after all of that, you might be thinking, who on earth would buy this lens? It's clinically pretty poor when you compare it to other lenses on the market. And I would say, yes, if you're looking for the absolute sharpest lens out there that's a manual focus prime, this is probably not it. Even in that comparison, you saw that it was really not even up to other cheap lenses, at least for APS-C. But when you consider that this lens is designed for full frame, it's also very, very budget friendly. This thing I think costs around $230 last time I checked, which is insanely cheap when you consider it's for full frame and it's f1.4. And when you also consider that it's really a, I want to say replica, homage maybe, of the Leica version, the 50mm f1.4, which the Leica version is several times more expensive than this lens, then it kind of starts to make sense. This is a lens that if you are looking for a unique look, you're okay with the quirks of, the distortions, if you're okay with the manual focus ring, you're okay with the flare, you're okay with the chromatic aberration, you're okay with the general okay sharpness in the center and somewhat blurry corners unless you stop it down, then it's a fun lens to go around and shoot with. But when you have so many other lenses out on the market, it kind of loses in that regard. But again, if you have a full frame camera, and you are on a very, very tight budget, something worth looking into. Just don't expect it to perform at the levels of, let's say, even a Sony 50mm f1.8. I think optically it would blow this lens out of the water without question, and that lens is, $200 or so. It's a well-built lens. I appreciate that TTartisan is releasing lenses such as this one. I like the design. There are things to like about it, but overall as a package, I think that there are a lot of shortcomings. So that is going to be it for this review of the TTartisan 50mm f1.4. I hope you guys enjoyed it and you learned something. If you want to read more specs about it or possibly buy this lens, I'll leave links down in the description below, so please check those out. And I think what I want to do with this lens is just do a little easy giveaway. So I am going to post this video, I think on Thursday. A week from Thursday, whatever that is, the following week, I will pick a random comment in the comments and I will give this lens out to you. So you'll have to send me your address and I'll ship this thing out anywhere in the world. I'm gonna pay for international shipping, even for those of you watching internationally. So leave a comment down below. Thank you guys so much for all of your likes and your support. Stay tuned for more and have a nice day. Bye-bye.